I left my daughter with my sister for one weekend. But then I got a call from Child Protective Services, and they said I was under investigation. I left my daughter with my sister for one weekend, thinking she was in safe hands. If I'd known what would follow, I would have never walked out that door. My name is Lena. I'm 32 years old, a single mother, and for the past 6 years, my entire world has revolved around one person, my daughter, Emma. Emma is the kind of child who could brighten a room just by walking in. Big hazel eyes, a wild mess of curly brown hair, and a laugh that makes your heart swell. Her dad walked out before she was even born, and while I struggled to make ends meet, juggling 2 jobs, sleepless nights, and more tears than I'd like to admit, she gave me strength. Every smile of hers reminded me why I fought so hard. But no matter how strong I tried to be, I couldn't do it all alone. That's where my sister, Danielle, came in. Danielle and I grew up close, or at least, that's what I used to believe. We were only 2 years apart, and after our parents died in a car crash when I was 19, we clung to each other. I dropped out of college to raise her. At that time, I was part sister, part mother. I cooked for her, kept her in school, made sure she got therapy. I put my life on pause so she could find hers again. But when Danielle turned 25, things started to change. She got a stable job in marketing, moved into a beautiful apartment in the city, and surrounded herself with people I didn't know. She stopped returning my calls as often, started dodging family dinners, and when she did show up, there was something distant in her eyes. Something I couldn't quite place. Still, when I was offered a rare opportunity, a 2-day corporate retreat that could finally get me promoted and raise my hourly wage, I had no choice but to ask Danielle for help. I remember that call like it happened yesterday. Please, just 2 nights, I said, practically begging. I can't afford to say no to this. I'll leave you a full schedule, snacks, bedtime routine, emergency contacts, everything. There was a pause. Then a sigh. Fine, she muttered. But I'm not a babysitter, Lena. I swallowed the sting in her words. You're not. You're her aunt. She showed up late that Friday, phone in one hand, keys in the other, barely glancing at Emma. But Emma, bless her heart, ran to her and threw her little arms around Danielle's legs, completely unaware of the tension between us. Be good for Auntie Danny, okay? I told Emma, crouching to kiss her on the forehead. I'll call you before bed. She nodded, clutching her stuffed elephant. Love you, Mommy. I hugged her tighter than usual. Something didn't feel right. Maybe it was just my nerves. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe. Maybe it was intuition. I brushed it off. I had no choice. The retreat was only an hour away. I checked in, attended the first session, and spent most of the evening glued to my phone. I called Emma twice. Danielle didn't answer the first time. The second time, Emma answered on speaker. She sounded sleepy but happy. We had mac and cheese, she whispered. And we watched Frozen. That gave me relief. Maybe I was overthinking. Saturday went by. I kept calling and texting, most went unanswered. I chalked it up to Danielle being annoyed, like she always was when I asked for anything. Then Sunday morning came. I was in a workshop when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look. But when I saw the caller ID, my blood went cold. Child Protective Services. I answered immediately, heart pounding. Hello? A woman's voice came through, calm but firm. Ms. Lena Cross? Yes. Is everything okay? Is Emma? We've received a report concerning the welfare of your daughter. We need to speak with you immediately. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Where is she? Is she hurt? She's safe, the woman replied. But we do need you to come in for questioning. There are concerns regarding the environment she's being raised in. What? I nearly shouted. What the hell are you talking about? I'm at a corporate retreat. My sister's watching her. There was silence. Then she added something that made my blood run cold. The report came from someone who claims to be a close family member. And the concerns are about you, Ms. Cross. I couldn't breathe. They said you've been neglecting your child, she continued. That your home is unfit, that you leave her alone frequently, and that you may have a substance issue. What? That's a lie. That's all a lie. I don't drink. I don't even smoke. I work 2 jobs to provide for her. Who would? But deep down, I already knew. Danielle. I drove home like a maniac, panic blinding my thoughts. My mind spiraled with images of Emma crying, being taken from me, scared and confused. I kept imagining her asking, "Where's mommy?" When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a government sedan parked outside. A woman with a clipboard stood next to my porch. But what shook me even more, Danielle's car was gone. No goodbye. No confrontation. No explanation. Just a betrayal so deep it made my knees buckle. I stumbled toward the CPS worker. "I need to see my daughter," I said, barely holding it together. She nodded gently. "Of course. But we need to talk first." Inside my own home, I felt like a stranger. The woman took photos of the kitchen, the living room, Emma's bedroom. She asked for financial records, pay stubs, and even questioned the medications in my bathroom cabinet. Emma sat on the couch, hugging her elephant, watching me like she didn't understand what was going on, and I hated that I couldn't explain it either. Finally, I asked, "Do you really believe I would hurt her? After everything I've done? After the life I've built?" The woman looked at me carefully. "Sometimes, people we trust don't have our best interests at heart. That's why we investigate thoroughly. The person who reported you gave specific details, times, alleged incidents." I shook my head in disbelief. Who would even say that? Why would someone make this up? The woman gave me a sympathetic look. "We can't disclose the reporter's name officially, but it wasn't anonymous." And in that moment, I felt the final dagger slide in. Because only one person knew those details. Only one person I trusted with Emma. Danielle. My own sister. The girl I'd raised. The girl I protected after our parents died. The girl I loved like a daughter. She had reported me to Child Protective Services. And suddenly, every strange behavior, every bitter remark, every cold shoulder, it all made sense. But what didn't make sense was why. Why would she do this to me? Why now? And what the hell was she really doing while she was supposed to be watching my child? It had been 48 hours since CPS walked through my door, and I was still spiraling. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I looked at Emma, I saw fear. Not in her, in me. Fear that this woman, this stranger with a clipboard and sympathetic eyes, could take her from me based on a single lie. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing exactly who told that lie. Danielle. My sister. My blood. I tried calling her 12 times. All ignored. I sent texts that ranged from desperate to furious. Me. Why would you do this to me? Me. You told them I'm a bad mother? Me. Emma asked for you today. I hope that eats you alive. Me. You're dead to me, Danielle. No response. I didn't understand what I'd done to deserve this. And then, as if the universe wanted to punish me further, CPS called again. "We need to follow up in person," they said. "We've been given additional documentation, photos, diary pages, even text messages." "What text messages?" I asked. The worker hesitated. "Screenshots suggesting you leave your daughter home alone frequently. They appear to be between you and someone named Jordan?" My stomach dropped. Jordan was an ex I broke up with almost a year ago. The same man Danielle once claimed to despise. She said he was manipulative, controlling, dangerous. She was right. He'd stalked me for a while after we split. I had to block him, file a complaint. But I never told her everything because I didn't want to reopen that trauma. I didn't tell anyone, except Danielle. And now his name had resurfaced. With screenshots? I grabbed my old phone, the one I hadn't used in months, and pulled up my messages. My stomach churned as I scrolled. Nothing looked out of place. until I found a string of messages I didn't remember sending. Can you watch Emma again tonight? Left her with a neighbor. She'll be fine. Ugh, kids are exhausting. I need a break. Each one from my number. Each one damning. But they weren't mine. My hands shook. I knew what had happened. Danielle had access to that phone. She helped me reset it once when it bricked. She had the pin, and apparently, she had the motive. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was digital, strategic, calculated. She hadn't just reported me, she built a case against me. That's when the rage began to boil. And with it, questions. What was she hiding? Why now? Why Emma? I didn't have answers, but I knew where to start: Danielle's apartment. I hadn't been there in over a year. The last time was for Emma's 5th birthday, and Danielle was weirdly distant even then, like she was in another world, smiling at all the wrong moments, barely acknowledging the people around her. But I remembered her building, and I still had the spare key. She never asked for it back. I waited until Emma was asleep, then called a sitter I trusted from down the street. Told her it was an emergency. She understood. Thankfully, some people still believed in me. By 10:15 p.m., I was standing in front of Danielle's apartment door, heart pounding, key clenched in my sweaty hand. I knew what I was doing was risky, probably illegal. But so was what she did. The door creaked open. Everything inside was pristine. White walls, expensive candles, marble countertops. But something was off. Too clean. Too staged. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen island. And I shouldn't have, but I did. I lifted the lid. It wasn't locked. I opened her recent folders. My heart stopped. There was a folder titled L. Custody Strategy. Inside were PDFs, screenshots, notes with dates, voice memos labeled CPS Call 1, MP3, and Jordan of the Leverage text. I opened one note file. My eyes burned. Build narrative of Lena being unfit. Use old text with Jordan. If needed, edit messages for screenshots. CPS guidelines allow anonymous tips, but named sources carry more weight. Be willing. My breath hitched. She planned everything. There were photos of Emma, ones I hadn't even seen. Pictures taken at the park, in the bathtub, asleep in bed. Nothing graphic, but enough to raise questions about privacy and safety. Photos that made it look like I wasn't present. And at the bottom of it all, a drafted email to a custody lawyer. Please advise what evidence is needed to pursue guardianship of my niece. My sister is unstable, and I believe Emma would be safer with me permanently. My knees nearly gave out. She wasn't just sabotaging me. She wanted to take my daughter. Steal her. Raise her as her own. Why? Was it guilt? Jealousy? Some twisted attempt to relive our childhood, only this time with her in control? I heard a noise behind me, the elevator. I shut the laptop and slipped out the back door, heart hammering. Back home, I locked every window and door. Tucked Emma into bed again. Kissed her forehead like it might be the last time. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. Danielle didn't want to ruin my life. She wanted to replace me. And worse, she might succeed. The next morning, I got a letter from CPS, a court summons. They were filing for temporary protective custody pending the investigation. It was happening. They were going to try to take Emma. And the person leading the charge was my own sister. I had no money for a lawyer, no time to prepare. But I had one thing Danielle didn't count on. Me. And I wasn't going down without a fight. They say betrayal doesn't break you in one sharp snap. It erodes you from the inside, like acid slowly eating through bone. That's exactly how I felt as I stood in front of the mirror the morning after I discovered Danielle's custody strategy folder. My hands trembled as I buttoned up my shirt for the court meeting. My face looked older, eyes sunken from sleepless nights, lips cracked from dehydration and grief. But inside, something new had taken root. Fire. I wasn't going to lose Emma. Not to the system. and definitely not to her. The first court hearing was a disaster. Danielle showed up in a beige pantsuit, hair tied neatly back, makeup just right, like some Pinterest version of a capable, caring guardian. She cried on cue, dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, and told the judge how she was deeply concerned for Emma's safety. "She's not a bad mother," Danielle said, voice trembling. "She's just exhausted. And when people are exhausted, they make mistakes. Clever. Poison coated in sugar." Her lawyer handed over a file thicker than my daughter's kindergarten binder, full of evidence. Photos, alleged texts, witness statements. I tried to explain the phone hacking, the manipulated screenshots, but without a lawyer of my own, I looked paranoid. Desperate. The judge ruled in favor of temporary shared custody. Danielle was granted 2 weeks with Emma until the investigation concluded. Just like that, I had to hand my daughter over to the woman who was tearing our lives apart. I'll never forget the way Emma looked at me as Danielle led her away. Confused. Hurt. Like she didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming. Why mommy was just standing there, frozen. I collapsed in my car and screamed into the steering wheel until I couldn't breathe. But then I dried my tears. Because tears wouldn't save Emma. Evidence would. I started with my old phone. The one Danielle used to fake the texts. I brought it to a small data recovery firm, a shady-looking place in a strip mall that smelled like printer ink and despair. The guy at the counter, Josh, looked about 17 and had more piercings than facial expressions. But he was a genius. Within hours, he confirmed my suspicion. Yeah, these messages are fabricated. The timestamps are manipulated, and the metadata's all wrong. Whoever did this, did it from a third-party simulator and then injected them into the backup files. Amateur level, but sneaky. "Can you prove it?" I asked. He grinned. "Oh yeah, I'll write you a full report. I can even testify if it comes to that." I exhaled for the first time in days. But I wasn't done. I started digging deeper into Danielle's life. She always kept things tight, curated, but no one's perfect. Everyone leaves cracks if you know where to look. And I found hers. Through an old contact of mine in college, a girl who worked in HR at the firm Danielle was supposedly working at. I asked her, casually, if Danielle still worked there. Her reply? "She was let go 6 months ago. Didn't she tell you?" My blood turned to ice. Danielle had no job, no income, and she was fighting for custody of a child? I pulled at that thread harder. Reached out to her landlord using a fake inquiry email, pretending to be a prospective tenant. He responded quickly, saying the unit would be vacant by next month. Miss Danielle's lease is ending and she's not renewing. So, no job, no apartment. Then why the custody grab? Unless she needed Emma to survive. The final piece came from a name I hadn't thought of in a while. Jordan. The toxic ex who disappeared after our breakup. I found his social media, buried under a username I recognized from late-night stalking years ago. It was inactive for months, but his last post chilled me. Some people weaponize their past. Others sell it. The comments were filled with angry rants and vague references to getting played. But one message stood out. A reply from none other than Danielle. "You want to talk about getting played? I still have the screenshots, Jordan. Watch your mouth or I'll forward them." My fingers went cold. She blackmailed him. She used him to build her fake case, and then threatened him to stay quiet. I sent him a DM from a burner account, pretending to be someone else, someone willing to expose Lena and help bring her down. Took a risk. Played the bait. He replied. Too late. I already gave Danny everything she asked for. She promised she'd pay me once she got the kid. Pay him. So that was it. Danielle paid Jordan to collaborate on the lie. Then turned on him. She was spiraling. I called my sitter, Janine, who had watched Emma the night I went to Danielle's. I asked her if she'd be willing to give a statement about how often I actually left Emma with people I trusted. She said yes without hesitation. You've never left her with a stranger, Lena. I'll write whatever you need. She's your whole world. Everyone can see that. I built a folder. I printed everything. Josh's phone analysis. Screenshots of Danielle's messages to Jordan. The HR email. The rental listing. Janine's statement. I even screen recorded my conversation with Jordan on the burner account. And then, I submitted it. To my caseworker. To the court. To everyone who'd been fed Danielle's lies. The next hearing came 10 days later. Danielle looked smug. I looked calm. The judge asked if I had anything to present. I stood, hands steady. Yes, Your Honor. I have proof that the accusations against me are not only false, but deliberately manufactured by the petitioner. What followed was a 30-minute presentation that cracked Danielle's case like shattered glass. Josh's report blew apart the fake texts. Janine's letter refuted the claims of neglect. The proof of Danielle's unemployment and pending eviction poked massive holes in her ability to provide for a child. But the final blow was the email thread with Jordan. The judge's eyebrows rose as I read out Danielle's threat to him. And when I played the voice memo labeled CPS Call 1 MP3, where Danielle rehearsed what she would say to make me sound mentally unstable, the courtroom fell silent. Danielle turned pale. Her lawyer leaned away from her like she was contagious. The judge didn't even need a recess. He slammed the gavel and ruled in my favor. Full custody reinstated. Investigation closed. Danielle was ordered to have no contact with Emma until further notice. But even as I held Emma in my arms that night, whispering over and over that mommy wasn't going anywhere, I couldn't shake the chill in my spine. Because someone who plans betrayal that thoroughly doesn't walk away quietly. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt safe. But standing there in the hallway of the courthouse, holding the custody papers with one hand and Emma's tiny fingers in the other, I didn't feel peace. I felt rage. Because justice on paper wasn't enough. Danielle didn't just try to take my daughter. She tried to destroy my life with lies, manipulation, blackmail, and cruelty that went deeper than I ever imagined. She didn't just cross a line. She buried it. And I was done being the sister who forgives. Done being the girl who swallowed her voice to keep the peace. Done letting trauma dress itself up as family loyalty. Now, it was my turn. First, I needed to find out how far the rot went. I went back to Josh, the tech guy who'd helped uncover the fake texts. When I handed him Danielle's old laptop, which I'd borrowed again while she was still trying to process her court loss, he barely blinked. Let me guess, he said. You want everything. Emails, passwords, browser history, deleted files? I nodded. He grinned. Consider it done. 2 days later, I had a full digital forensics report in my inbox. And it was worse than I thought. Danielle had done this before. Not to me, to someone else. A folder deep in her hard drive, hidden under layers of meaningless file names, was labeled M Strategy. Inside were nearly identical documents to mine. Only this time, the target wasn't me. It was her ex-best friend, Marissa. I found old screenshots of a text thread between Danielle and someone named Gabe. And when I pieced them together, a pattern emerged. She had inserted herself into Marissa's life after a messy divorce. Offered to help with the kids. Subtly suggested Marissa was unstable. Then sent anonymous tips to the school district that led to an investigation. The result? Marissa lost partial custody of her son. Danielle went quiet afterward. Deleted her accounts. Moved cities. It wasn't just personal. It was a pattern. Danielle preyed on vulnerable women, inserted herself like a savior, then quietly took what wasn't hers. I had to warn others. But more than that, I had to stop her for good. I reached out to Marissa. It took work. She'd gone completely off-grid, probably after what Danielle did. But when I finally found her business email through an Etsy shop she ran, I sent a carefully worded message. Hi. I think we were both hurt by the same person. Her name is Danielle Cross. I have evidence that she may have sabotaged your custody case, and I can prove it. Please, for the sake of both our children, contact me. She replied within an hour. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our towns. She was quiet, jumpy, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that only betrayal can carve into your face. When I showed her Danielle's files, she burst into tears. I knew it, she whispered. I knew it wasn't me. I knew I didn't imagine everything falling apart. She made me feel insane. She tried to do the same to me, I said. But I stopped her. And now, we stop her together. We made a plan. Step 1 was exposure. We sent everything, Danielle's pattern of behavior, screenshots, digital reports, audio files, and voice memos, to a local journalist who specialized in custody corruption and family law abuse cases. The story exploded. The headline hit by Monday morning. Trusted family member or serial saboteur? Woman accused of orchestrating false custody claims across state lines. The article included anonymized quotes from me and Marissa, verified forensic data, and timelines that showed an unmistakable pattern. Danielle infiltrating women's lives, gathering personal data, and using it to engineer investigations for her own gain. Within 24 hours, CPS reopened Marissa's case. And within 48 hours, Danielle's face was on every local news station. Step 2 was accountability. I filed a civil lawsuit for malicious defamation, emotional distress, and fraud. Marissa did the same, and after we pooled our evidence, we found one more woman, a former roommate of Danielle's, who had similar experiences. 3 women. 3 stories. 1 predator. Danielle tried to stay silent at first. Then came the denial. She made a public statement claiming we were all mentally unstable and conspiring against her. The court didn't buy it. They subpoenaed her financial records and found payments made to Jordan that lined up exactly with the timeline of my case. Danielle tried to explain it away as consulting fees, but the math didn't lie. She was unraveling. Fast. Step 3 was personal. I wrote Danielle a letter. Not to forgive her. Not to plead. But to finish it. Dear Danielle, I used to believe you were broken. That grief made you cold. That trauma made you selfish. I blamed Mom and Dad's accident. I blamed the world. I blamed myself for not protecting you. But I see now. This wasn't brokenness. This was cruelty. This was a choice. You didn't just try to hurt me. You studied me. You waited for the perfect moment. And you struck. But you forgot who I am. I'm the girl who raised you when no one else would. I'm the mother who would walk through hell for her child. And I'm not your victim anymore. I'm your reckoning. You didn't just lose custody. You lost your mask. And now the world sees you the way I finally do. As the danger hiding behind a sister's smile. You may have started this war. But I ended it. I didn't sign it. She would know exactly who it was from. By the time the court hearings wrapped up, Danielle had lost everything. Her fake case, her reputation, her income, and, eventually, her freedom. The judge ruled in our favor on all civil counts. She was fined, ordered into mandatory psychiatric evaluation, and, after the fraud case stuck, sentenced to 9 months in county jail, with probation and a ban from contacting me or Marissa ever again. And Emma? She came back home. For good. The night after Danielle's sentencing, I sat on the floor with Emma, helping her build a crooked Lego castle while she told me stories about her day at school. Then, out of nowhere, she looked at me and said, "Mummy, you're like a superhero." I smiled. "Why do you say that?" "Because you fight bad guys, and you always win." I pulled her into my arms and held her close. "Not all scars are visible, but some. You carry like armor." And this time, I wasn't the one bleeding. Life returned to something resembling normal. Emma was back home. CPS was out of our lives. The courts had ruled in my favor. Danielle was gone, serving her sentence, barred from coming anywhere near me or Emma ever again. And yet, peace didn't feel peaceful. It felt unfinished. Because sometimes, when your world is shattered by betrayal, You start looking at every corner of your past through a new lens. And no matter how tightly you try to stitch things back together, certain threads refuse to lie flat. Danielle had tried to destroy me. That part was undeniable. But even with all her cruelty, one question haunted me more than anything else. Why Emma? Why would she risk everything, jail, reputation, exposure, just to take Emma from me? It wasn't just spite. It wasn't just control. It was something deeper. I could feel it. Weeks later, while sorting boxes from the attic, I found something I hadn't seen in years, my mother's old lockbox. It was dented, rusted around the edges, and heavy with dust, like the past itself had tried to bury it. I almost didn't open it. But inside were the last remains of a time I hadn't touched since the accident. Before our parents died, before I dropped out of college to raise Danielle, before life went off script. Old journals. A few faded photographs. Hospital documents, letters. I flipped through them slowly, like peeling back layers of memory I'd forgotten I still carried. One envelope stood out. It had my name on it. The handwriting was unmistakably my mother's. To Lena, if something happens to us. I sat on the attic floor, heart pounding, and opened it. Inside were 2 pages. The first was a letter. The second, a birth certificate. My breath caught. The letter began, Lena, if you're reading this, it means we're no longer here. I wish I had more time to explain all of this in person. But there are things you deserve to know, things we couldn't tell you while Danielle was still a child. Danielle is not your sister by blood. I froze. My fingers trembled as I kept reading. We adopted her when she was 4. She doesn't remember. We kept it from both of you, thinking it was best. Her biological mother was unstable. She left Danielle on our porch one night with nothing but a note. We tried to raise her as our own. But there were always signs, things we didn't understand. She struggled with trust, with empathy. She began lying at a very young age. Please don't blame yourself for what she may become. You gave her love. You gave her family. And that matters, even if she forgets. I sat there, stunned, reading the birth certificate over and over. Different last name. Different mother. No father listed. It all made sense now. The subtle coldness. The way she never truly connected with me or Emma. The calculated cruelty. The obsession with Emma as if she deserved her. Danielle didn't just want to be Emma's guardian. She believed she had a right to her. And then, like a punch to the gut, another thought hit me. What if she believed Emma was hers? I ran downstairs, grabbed my laptop, and searched the old court files from Danielle's sentencing. There was a sealed psychiatric evaluation attached to the case. I had to file a formal request, but the judge had granted me partial access as part of the civil judgment. Buried in that report was the real twist. A passage from the court-appointed psychologist. Subject expressed recurring delusions involving the minor child, including claims of maternal connection. Despite clear evidence to the contrary, she insists the child was taken from her by the state and placed with her unstable sister. Subject refers to the child as mine or my baby multiple times throughout the interview, despite acknowledging no legal maternity. Diagnosis: delusional disorder, somatic subtype, compounded by unresolved childhood trauma. My stomach flipped. Danielle believed Emma was her child. She didn't fake the obsession. She lived it. Somewhere in her fractured mind, she had rewritten reality. Turned her abandonment, her pain, into a story where I was the villain. And Emma was her redemption. I shut the file and looked across the room where Emma was drawing rainbows with glitter pens. My sweet girl. My daughter. She had no idea how close we came to being torn apart by a lie wrapped in madness. But that wasn't all. The final, most devastating truth came a week later. A CPS supervisor called me, one of the higher-ups who'd reviewed Danielle's case. There's something you need to know, she said gently. It's not relevant to custody anymore, but we uncovered it during the fraud investigation, and ethically, we thought you had a right to be informed. I held my breath. A hospital record Danielle submitted early in the case. One she claimed proved you left Emma in the ER alone years ago. It was fake. But the database entry we traced it to? It led us to a different hospital entirely. A maternity ward. I'm not following, I said. She continued. There's no record of you giving birth at that hospital. But there is a record of an abandoned baby girl brought in by a neighbor, left on a doorstep. 6 years ago. My heart stopped. She was wrapped in a blue blanket. No note, no identification. But the staff named her temporarily after the woman who found her. I choked on my words. Emma? The woman paused. Emma Grace Walters. That was the intake name. I dropped to my knees. It took a week to confirm it. DNA tests. Cross-checks. Legal revalidation. And it was true. Emma wasn't biologically mine. She was abandoned, found on my doorstep in the middle of a thunderstorm, wrapped in a blue blanket. And for reasons I still can't explain, maybe fate, maybe pure instinct, I claimed her. I told the police she was my child. I raised her as mine. I loved her without question. I remembered that night now. The knock at the door. The cold air. The baby on the step. I had just lost a pregnancy months before. I was shattered. And when I looked into those tiny eyes, I knew she was meant to be mine. Legally, I adopted her within months, quietly, through the system, with no one questioning the match because no one else had come forward. Not even Danielle. Until now. Was that why Danielle tried to take her? Did she know? Or did she simply recognize something broken in Emma? Something she believed mirrored herself, and try to claim it out of twisted logic? I would never know. But standing there with the truth in my hands, I realized something that finally did bring me peace. Love isn't blood. It isn't DNA. It isn't a last name. Love is who stays. Love is who fights. Love is who refuses to let go, even when the whole world tries to tear you apart. Emma may not have grown inside me, but she is, and always will be, my daughter. Not because of where she came from, but because of where she stayed.